Coming up on today's episode of Parasport Nation, we share the first interview from the 2026 Paralympic Media Summit. We managed to get a dozen amazing interviews with tons of Winter Paralympic athletes vying for the chance to medal and podium and have success in Milano Cortina. Our first one that we're sharing with you is with Paralympic Nordic skier Brittany Hudak. You won't want to miss it. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smyth, as always, joined by my co-host, Nathan Clement. Nathan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Alex. Still battling the pigeons here. They got me up early this morning, but I'm going to be on the other side of victory at some point with this ongoing battle. But for you, you had a busy last week. You were in Toronto for the Content Summit. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so it is definitely a long day. It's a long day for everyone. Obviously, long day for the athletes, but it's also a long day for the media team. I showed up probably around 7:15 or so, and we wrapped our last interview around 5:45 p.m. So not quite like the 11 hours there, but still a good chunk of change there. You're basically, you have a room, you're set up there all day. Every half an hour, a new athlete's coming in. You got a half an hour block with each of them. It's great opportunity. The other great positive for me and the team, Jeff, our producer, was there on the ground as well, is a good chunk of the athletes know us, they recognize us, they've seen our stuff. Even some of the hockey players on the para ice hockey team, even though we've never had the pleasure to meet, they were already aware of us. They had watched our episodes, been following closely, whether it's the Tyler McGregor episode or the Greg Westlake episode. So that was really positive to see that we're making those connections and inroads, not only with the other media, but also with the athletes themselves. Nathan, you're no stranger to it. We literally interviewed you last year at for the Paris one. How was it from a athlete perspective to go through kind of that car wash, as we like to describe it, into one room, then the next, then the next?
It's a very special event, but as you know, and many of the athletes that do it, it is a very exhausting and taxing event where it's a lot of talking, it's a lot of emotional, deep conversations because you're sharing your story, you're sharing your highs, you're sharing your lows, and especially for a West Coast athlete who has to go to Toronto, you arrive late in the evening, the next thing you know, first thing in the morning, you're talking in front of cameras, but it's a very beautiful event where you get to learn so many stories about other athletes that you may not know about or reconnect with friends, but you also, in those 30-minute spans, it's not you just straight in the camera. You're often having conversations with the teams, with the different reporters and broadcasters that are in these rooms. And it's a really great time just to grow a bond, grow a little connection, and just have some fun in the process. And just getting those kinds of opportunities is so great. And the food is so good at those events too, which just makes it worthwhile for the athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. The food is tremendous. I guess they kind of have to make sure that the food is suitable for the athletes, especially those who are very focused in on a regimented diets. I think of someone like a Mark Rentz who is just so tuned into what he's doing every step of every day, whether it's his eating habits or sleeping habits. You want to make sure they're not kind of sacrificing what they're trying to eat or the kind of the schedule they're trying to stay on for an event like this. So the food is tremendous, and yeah, those connections are really, really fun. I mean, away from the camera with a wheelchair curler, Mark Idison, he brought all his medals. So me and the team, we were chatting with him about, you know, where he keeps his medals and things like that, like storing them in the sock drawer, in socks or in boxes. It's tons of fun. You get all the great content, but you also get to know the athletes better as well. So that was always certainly something we really enjoyed. And we are going to have tons of interviews, tons of great content to bring you at home throughout the course of this summer and the winter and fall as we head into Milano Cortina 2026. So without further ado, let's head to our first interview, which features Brittany Hudak, a Paralympic biathlon and Nordic skiing athlete. She has made many podiums. This is actually going to be her 4th Paralympic Games. Here's my interview with Brittany Hudak. Brittany, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So this is going to be your 4th Paralympics. How are you feeling going into Milano Cortina, and how has your approach to these competitions changed or evolved over the years?
Yeah, so 2014 Sochi was my first games, and that was completely different than leading into 2026 because I wasn't actually even expecting to qualify for Sochi. I had taken up the sport 2 years before that and was like fast-tracked to, I guess, try and qualify for Sochi. And then when I did qualify for Sochi, it was more about just getting the experience of the Paralympics, learning of like all these cameras around. And it was like a huge event. And I don't even think I had ever been outside of Canada at that point in my life. So it was very different in the sense that I was still learning the sport and just trying to like learn ski technique. Like skiing, it takes so long to learn all these like fine details. So that was very different being at those games because it wasn't about performance, and that was very clear to me. It was just like soak in the experience, learn as much as you can from everybody. And then leading into Pyeongchang in 2018 was a bit more about performance, but I didn't necessarily have a lot of pressure to podium. I don't think it was expected that I would podium there. I was just hoping to try and like have some personal best races, and whatever that resulted in, great. And I ended up winning my first Paralympic bronze medal in the long distance biathlon race. And that was great because it was one of those days where everything just went perfectly. And then leading into Beijing, I felt like that was definitely more about performance, but COVID threw us this curveball, and navigating training and competitions leading into that was a lot different than previous games. And now here we are leading into my 4th Paralympics. God, I don't want to age myself, but it's kind of crazy how fast the time goes. But I love the sport so much that I think it's really flown by. And this time it's definitely still about performance and having personal bests, but I think this go around is different because I'm a lot more of a mature athlete, and I've fine-tuned what works for me and what doesn't. So now it's really just about putting that into practice, and you just have to execute. Like, I'm gonna go there on the day and know that the work has been put in, and sure, there's been a lot of like ups and downs in the process, but at the end of the day, like, I need to just trust in my own process, and I know like what I need to do in order to be at that level. So hopefully we'll maybe see a different medal color.
Fingers crossed. I mean,
yeah,
that would be
fingers crossed.
great.
Like a podium would be amazing. Yeah. It's always like really hard. You're hoping for podiums, and then if it's different colors of medals too, that'd be great.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of your a quick rise and start into the sport. Take us back to that serendipitous meeting with Clement back when you first got started. Like, how much of an impact did that meeting and her involvement being a member of that team help you early on in your career?
Yeah, Colette had a huge impact for me. I mean, at that point in my life, I hadn't even heard of the Paralympics. I didn't know about parasport. I had no idea about any of like the Paralympic movement at all. And I had grown up with a physical disability and just had no idea that I could ever make a career out of sport. And meeting Colette, I mean, I was just casually working at the local Canadian Tire, and I graduated high school and started university. So my path like completely changed. I was just thinking, I'm gonna go to university and get a degree and work a regular full-time job, like what most people do. It's still a great path in life. And meeting Colette introduced me to parasport, and then people involved in parasport, and I really got to be a part of a great ski program in my hometown of Prince Albert. And then from there, I was able to make more connections with like the national team and really be inspired by the athletes on the team. And then it was like really quick, like, okay, you need to all tell you to see this coach, and like she knew all of the right steps that I needed to take in order to be successful if that was the path that I wanted to go down, because obviously being introduced to the sport, she didn't know if I was going to take it to a high level or of any chance of being on the podium. It was just like, oh, we'll make this fun and here's your training. And she really served as a mentor though, and then we became quite close, like leading into the games, and yeah, it was a huge impact on my entire life, really.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you kind of pay it forward a bit, because when you're not racing and competing yourself, you're also the lead instructor with Rocky Mountain Adaptive organization. I know well, I spent some time out there taking in one of their programs. So what does it mean to you to continue to be involved and still support the community on a grassroots level, not just being an athlete at the high performance?
Yeah, I always knew, like while I was competing, that I wanted to finish my degree in social work. That's definitely a passion of mine outside of sport, and it's something that really matters to me. So when I finished my degree after the 2018 games, it was COVID, and I knew that I wanted to find some sort of work experience or give back in some way and just contribute. I know that makes me an overall like happier person when I just have a few things on the go, and learning what I have so far in my sport career, I think has really helped me kind of overcome my own challenges as a person with a disability, and knowing like what has worked for my own mental health and what has really just helped me shape into the person that I am. And now I have like a clear avenue for how I can help others and utilize my story, but also like the skills and tools that I've learned along the way, and like help people realize that like just find something that you're passionate about and don't be afraid to pursue it, because that's really what it's about. Like I just choose to do things that I enjoy, and I've had success that way, where I'm not necessarily thinking about, oh, I need to do this for a paycheck, or I'm just really grateful for the things that I get to do, and being able to share that with others has also been great.
That's awesome. For yourself, you compete in both the biathlon and the Nordic cross country side. Is there one discipline you prefer more than the other?
It's hard to choose between Nordic and biathlon, but I think if I had to, I would probably choose biathlon, because to me, biathlon is the combination of body and mind. Shooting can be so mental. It's such a mental game, and it adds a different element, because sure, from the start of the race, you might know who's winning and you get the splits and you know exactly like what everyone's pace is at. But in biathlon, you could start that race skiing really fast, and then you could miss a lot of targets and then go start down the ranks and not really have a great result. So it's always like up and down, and that I find is a lot more exciting, because you're trying to ski at your absolute limit and then come into the range and still shoot fast, but you still want to be precise and hit the targets, and there's just a lot more factors that you get to play around with, and that to me is like really exciting. And it's also so satisfying when you do like put everything together on the same day, where you're skiing fast and you're able to hit your targets and have a good race. That's just like the icing on the cake. There's no better feeling.
Speaking of icing, I guess in some way, describe the perfect race conditions, the snow, like what do you like to compete on?
So I personally love if it is fresh snow, where your ski kind of like just cuts into the snow. It's like just soft enough, like kind of -5, maybe up to -10. I don't like it if it's too warm, because we're skiing at our limit and we actually get quite hot, even though we're wearing spandex. Who would have thought? So yeah, I like it when you kind of feel more of the snow under you. Sometimes it can be like icy and hard packed. I don't like that, because it's also terrifying if you fall. And sometimes it can be really warm. A lot of places that we go in Europe get quite warm, and it's like soft and slushy and you feel like you're skiing in mashed potatoes. That's not my favorite. But if it's just like a perfect -5 day and your ski just glides on that snow, magic.
What do you do during the off season? Because the season itself can be quite short, and as you mentioned, you know, certain races that gets quite warm at the tail end of the season. Do you do cross training with a different sport, or do you find other ways to stay active and stay in shape for the season?
Yeah, I mean, for Nordic skiing, a lot of our hours are actually done over the summer. We do a big chunk of our base training hours in the summer, and it's a nice combination of different sports that we get to do. Like we can bike, trail run, and then we do this funky thing called roller skiing, where you mimic the same technique that you would on snow, and they're kind of like rollerblades, but there's only 2 wheels. There's one in the front and the back, and then it's like a long ski, and then you use your poles, so it looks funny if people have never seen that before. So that's the main thing that we actually do in the summer, because it allows us to still work on our ski technique. But personally, I also love trail running, and I live in the Rocky Mountains, so it's like a beautiful playground to just train a bunch of hours. So trail running is definitely something that I do a lot in the off season.
Fantastic. And lastly for you, what's your goal for 2026?
I think my goal for 2026 is to still reach the podium. I know that was possible in Beijing, and I think Paralympic sport has grown so much, and the competition is definitely fierce, and everybody is going for the same goal, but I think I would be disappointed if I didn't podium. So my goal is definitely to have a podium or 2 in 2026.
That's a fantastic goal to have. Brittany, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's my interview with Brittany Hudak at the Media Summit. Nathan, there was so much great information and points in that conversation with Brittany. I really enjoyed it. She was so well-spoken, so eloquent in describing her passion and her journey and the desire to give back to the community with things like the Rocky Mountain Adaptive, which is such a great program there. But I think overall, my biggest takeaway from her is just the confidence. And I think that's something you really gain as it is her 4th Paralympic Games she's going into, that it's no longer about just enjoying the experience and hoping to make the podium. No, she's expecting to make the podium. It's just a matter now of focusing in on turning those bronze and silvers into golds.
Yeah, it was just incredible listening to that. I wasn't there, but just hearing the story about her starting at Canadian Tire, then getting into the sport, and really her journey of success is so phenomenal, and that willingness to give back. We just recently had that Jeff Harris interview on, and he talked about how important it is for the athletes to give back. And I know just from hearing about Brittany, just the work ethic, the commitment in that, and what we see is that desire to give back is so crucial and so important, and that confidence and belief that is throughout the team. That is a strong roster. We often talk about just the levels of leaders and athletes that the Nordic and Parabiathlon squads had. But for you, Alex, your prediction was every Nordic athlete was going to podium at Milano Cortina. Are you more confident now after the Content Summit?
Yeah, absolutely. I am more confident. I am more bullish on my prediction that that entire team is going to medal one way or the other. Having a chance to chat again with Mark Arentz, who I'm very familiar with, but also Natalie Wilkie, and meeting Callie Erickson and his guide Sierra Smyth, I am more confident than ever. There was a bit of a fun kind of anecdote that we pulled out from that in chatting with Mark Arentz, where he was mentioning, some of the younger members of the team. He didn't name names, but he was like, yeah, after the media summit, they wanted to go do more training in the evening and stuff. He's like, oh, slow your horses. This is a long, tiring day. You're not going to be wanting to hit the gym afterwards. So, like I said, he didn't name names, but, when you look at that team with Mark Arentz, with Brittany Hudak and some of these other veterans, I think signs kind of point to Callie Erickson there. But what do you make of Brittany's kind of commitment to wanting to give back, to while still training and being a part of, the national team? She's still working as the lead Nordic instructor with Rocky Mountain Adaptive. I think that just really speaks to her character and her desire to not only be reaching those high goals in the high performance world, but also making sure you're supporting the community as well.
It's the biggest thing. It is beyond beautiful and amazing that Brittany is putting that work in, and that's kind of the thing with Paralympic sport and parasport, especially in Canada. And we've had this conversations in the past, is we are having to be like are trailblazers in so many different ways. We're having to push that standard forward, and it's giving back. And there's so many Paralympic athletes like Brittany who's taken that time to really help other people, kids, young adults, people who just went through different injuries, to give them that choice and give them that chance to find something that they love. Not everyone's going to be a Paralympian, but someone can find an activity that they can do on the weekends with the people closest to them that they just love and hold so dearly to them. And it's just creating that bit of community. And for her to, while being a high performance, being a professional para athlete, doing that work and still taking the time to really give back, commends the character, commends the leader, and commends the person that she is. And it's just really, really phenomenal and amazing.
Yeah, and I also think this speaks to the broader media summit, to go back to that conversation, that there weren't as many outlets or as many different rooms that were kind of in circulation when you compare it to something like the Paris summit. So there was only a handful of media outlets there. So I felt that the athletes themselves didn't get as exhausted through this process. So you were able to have a much more in-depth conversation like we had with Brittany, who was able to go into the details, that she wasn't repeating herself for the 12th time that day, because that is something that I find really happens. It happens to me as a reporter, especially that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock window after the lunch has settled into the stomach, after the 8th or 9th interview has taken place. It kind of starts to feel it a little bit, that the work starts to happen, that you have to kind of be focused in. But that really wasn't the case with Brittany. But for you, Nathan, I'm curious, in your experience in doing these media summits, what is the strangest either question or request that you had asked of you in one of these sessions?
Man, I've had some really weird and interesting stuff. Some stuff I'm not going to share, but one was I had to do a parasport with a mascot of a certain brand and company I'm not going to name, but they wanted me to really share my story while throwing a bocce ball. And it just was a little weird and awkward telling the deepest, darkest parts of my life to someone in a costume. So that was definitely a little unique and a little different. But overall, I've just had amazing experiences at the Content Summit, whether it's the events I got to do or just being able to speak with different reporters, different people from across the country. Because one thing that happens at the Content Summit, and I'm going to give a little shout out to Centennial College in Toronto, some of the professors there bring in their students to give them that chance to interview athletes. That happened when I did the 2023 summit and did the 2024 summit. So it gives that chance for students to interview and learn about Paralympic sport and really try to understand and get that depth. So there's so many fun moments like that. And sometimes they're learning about Paralympic sports, so there's some weirder questions you get asked, but overall it's just a great event to be a part of and just really help those kind of broadcasters by telling your story to help them learn, them grow, but also just for us to meet so many amazing people is really fulfilling and really special.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just such an opportunity that you can spend half an hour with all these athletes that before the final stretches of the training and the competition prep begins. And on that note, I just want to let the folks at home know that if you want more content, because we got some great social media content coming up, some clips from the interview, be sure to go to our YouTube page, Parasport Nation, or to our Instagram, Parasport Nation AMI. We're going to be posting great content from all these interviews, including our interview with Brittany Hudak, so you won't want to miss it. But that's not the only big news that has been happening in the parasports world. Nathan, you got the latest with the PSN update. Take it away.
Now, the PSN update.
In Brazil, Canada's knockout round ambitions were cut short at the U23 Wheelchair Basketball World Championships after a defeat to Germany. Following the loss, Canada bested Thailand in the 9th-12th consolation crossover before a match against Israel to decide the 9th and 10th placements in the tournament. In athletics, Tokyo 2020 Paralympian Sarah Mickey has announced her retirement. Mickey represented Canada at 2 World Championships and the 2019 Pan Am Games in Lima, Peru. And that's the PSN update.
So obviously I want to talk about the under-23 tournament and the World Championship, but I just want to give a moment to kind of celebrate Sarah Mickey, and while she didn't have the kind of the most accolades or the longest career on the Paralympic stage, it is still a great career, one that really spanned the duration of a full quadrennial from the 2019 to 2023, representing Canada on all the major competition stages during that time. I think it's really tremendous, and whether your athletic career on the international side of things is long for decades, as some athletes are, or just a single cycle, is still worth that celebration. So congratulations to Sarah Mickey on a great career. But Nathan, for you, what are your takeaways from the developments when it comes to Canada on the wheelchair basketball side of things? You know, the under 23 team, and even you start to expand it out to kind of the senior national team. There's a time of transition right now that there's definitely a rising skill level on the international stage, and Canada's struggling to keep up.
Yeah, right now the international circuits are really growing, really expanding. Like, we just see the depth in these tournaments right now. But the big thing for me is this is reps for young guys. This is reps for young players getting out there participating. And we can't forget, Canada's going to be hosting the 2026 Wheelchair Basketball World Championships in Ottawa. So this can be valuable opportunities for these athletes to just be able to compete, get that experience, and there's nothing like competing in front of home. And hopefully now, till the championships a year away, a lot of players, whether they're on the senior men's squad or they're on the U23 or different programs, just get that opportunity to really grow, expand, and hopefully that home cooking can really come through in a year.
Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed that we're going to see some podium finishes for Team Canada on home soil. But that's it for today's episode. Be sure to give us a like and follow YouTube, Instagram, AMI Audio, AMI Plus, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, he's Nathan. I'm Alex. We'll see you then.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.